Bitcoin. I completely agree that anarchy. I can't see what the purpose of it is, and I agree with. I don't think there is any purpose for it, and it's dangerous because it's pseudonymous. It's a lot of what people haven't realised is that there's not really title to a lot of money because it's not by law actually money. It's not like gold, which has law.
A lot of what's happened in tech and developing tech over the last 10 years has been a consequence of zero interest rates and the fact that there's this huge amount of money swashing around in the system looking for a return, and therefore it's gone into these companies that are seen as these high growth, future payoff type companies. And so what we're seeing now in the financial system where that's changing, I think you might start seeing a bit of a rotation out of is, can you get extremely wealthy by making a startup and selling it to Google or whatever? Because the internet and a lot of these technologies were built by volunteers, by researchers, and possibly that's a way of how it changes and sort of becomes a bit more open.
Yeah, so perhaps it's more back to the dorm room at Stanford and less Silicon Valley profiteers. I mean, Sam Bankman-Fried in the situation with FTX, I think, taught us a lot about the perils of always looking for the next great investment and what could happen there and the inflation that can occur. And then when the bubble bursts, it's so damaging. So was Theranos with Elizabeth Holmes, an idea that, you could accelerate towards this great future in which one drop of blood can tell you anything about your bodily health. Of course, a noble and valiant aim, but one that was inflated by these donors who came in, swooped in, and just gave one person far too much money. So yes, maybe these kind of dorm rooms are the places we should be looking. Let's talk a bit about money then, because I suppose that the question here is, if we move away from a credit system, the alternatives that are currently on the table, one of them is a kind of digital cash system, which is a digital currency, a centralized digital currency, something that is being trialed in various countries. But one country where it has been used for social credit is in China, and we don't get a very good look into China, of course, very often, but we can tell murmurings from people distant who come out that there is a strong sense there that your idea of your own personal autonomy can be heavily manipulated by a centralized bank system, as opposed to one where you can pick up and change banks if you don't like their politics, for example, which is the case in this country. If you decide you don't like Barclays putting out a rainbow flag, you can decide to move your money elsewhere. So how do we guard against the risks of that alternative system? And I suppose, James, to start with you, what is the current state of play in terms of digital currencies here?
Yeah, so digital currencies is an idea that originally was a sort of anarchist type idea, in that you would create a system of online currencies that would be decentralized, would have no central bank or any institution in charge of it. Now, what we've seen as a result of that with Bitcoin and other digital currencies is basically a lot of price speculation. We haven't, there's very little use case, even 15 years, I think it is now, since Bitcoin was first created. I remember hearing it back in 2010, and it was $1 and the bubble burst there. So what people are thinking about now, and a bit more seriously, is sort of central bank digital currencies. So Bitcoin is sort of the term that's
it's Rishi's as well. So who knows? We might be headed towards it if we keep him in. It was always his pet project.
Yeah, he's a big advocate of some of these technology. I don't think it's a coincidence that the first place that central bank digital currencies have first taken off is China, because it's a very centralized state. It is sort of partly used as a means of surveillance of control. I think there are some legitimate concerns about bringing that into other countries. I think the other big question about this stuff is what problem does it solve? I think it sounds good. It sounds future looking. Sounds digital. But I think the Bank of England, which is working on this, is still yet to lay out a really good use case about why we need a Bitcoin or whatever you call it. I mean, Philip might have some ideas about what it means for the the financial system and credit in general. But I think you have to get people to adopt this stuff. And actually, even in China, I was reading a report earlier this week. A lot of shops aren't accepting it because they don't see a reason to switch from the cash and card system that they have there.
Yes, I suppose we're weighing up here ideas about freedom and community value and how much we value those two things. Because, of course, if you look at somewhere like Totnes, which has the Totnes pound, which is a kind of circular economy of money that basically only works there. And it's classic that it's somewhere like Totnes that's done it. That's a kind of effectively a hippie commune. And what they've done is made a kind of mini circular economy within their town to keep things flowing and making sure that people are supported there who are producers. And it's not all just immediately taken out of the area and filtered out into the rest of the UK. But of course, with that comes a kind of certain degree of risk that we lose our freedom to have that sense of ourselves as a global economic player, which is, I think, something that most people value these days and perhaps would miss more than they think if they lost it. Philip, tell me about that.
Okay, let me start there. A number of issues I've got to address. First of all, Bitcoin. I completely agree that anarchy, I can't see what the purpose of it is, and I agree with. I don't think there is any purpose for it, and it's dangerous because it's pseudonymous. It's a lot of what people haven't realised is that there's not really title to a lot of money because it's not by law actually money. It's not like gold, which has law, and therefore, if somewhere in the blockchain there's any corruption, and unfortunately, as we all know, whenever you get blackmailed by people over the internet, they ask you to pay in Bitcoin, one of these currencies, and a lot of the drug smugglers use these because it's not traceable, it's pseudonymous. Therefore, it means that people haven't got title to the money because if early in the blockchain, unlike cash or sterling, where if I own the bond or I own the note, it doesn't matter what happens with that currency. With Bitcoin, it does because it's traceable. So there's not really title to any of that. So this is it would explode eventually because it's got no purpose. So the answer is not privatized pseudonymous currencies. That you talked about the example of Totnes. That's closer to what happened in Virgil. Because what happened in Virgil was that exactly the same thing. It was a local circular economy. They realized that all these things are not being done. These bridges to be built. There are unemployed people. It's 25% employment. And because of the system, those people are not doing those jobs. And he just did it. And he created what you call the circular economy. And wow, within a year, the whole place was transformed. And it then spread to lots of different regions around Austria because they all saw the beauty of this. And then it was stopped by the Austrian central bank, which shows the way this actually works and the ways. So the answer is you do want visibility. You want a currency that works, but not CBDC, because that is, when it's centralized, it's dystopian. You've got one state that none of us want to be under the control of central government. We want to distribute. So the combination is a digital currency, not a CBDC, but a digital currency. I see two currencies. One, a cash ledger, which is a digital currency. The second one is a loan lending ledger, which is the hoarding system. You have two different ledgers, which are completely visible, which are distributed locally. So it's empowering people via a new purpose, which is meeting the needs of other people. So you use this to move away from the current concept of, I've got to make as much money. You spoke about Rishi in a conference saying that why are we building technology in order to sell out to American VC companies? Because it's crazy, because we're focused on profit. If your focus is profit, then you'll do whatever you can to make as much money. What you can do with the rest of your life, I don't know, because you've got the cash sitting in your bank. So what we should be doing is forget it. Money is a distraction. We need money to change the world, but it's not the end. It's a medium. We then need to focus on what our purpose is, which is to use technology to actually look after people and planet, enable people like Flo to buy houses, to have all their needs met, and then to create, and then that becomes a purpose. And then you're not going to build a business to sell it, because you're building a business to change as many people's lives as possible. So the answer is yes, a digital currency with a transparency which enables the problems to be resolved, but not a CBDC, which is centralized and dystopian, and not a Bitcoin, which is pseudonymous and not accountable.